right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part 116 of my presentation on the flood in Noah's Ark. And this one here, guys, we're getting close to the end. And so hopefully with the next video, I can start up with where the ark is. Eyewitnesses. I'm going to show you some photographs, give you some testimonies and stuff like that. It's a really interesting topic, guys. It really is. And so we're going to hopefully start on that with the next video. But I got a lot to throw at you here. I've been going through my slides, and so there's just to be able to do what I want to do, I'm going to have to put as much information in this video as possible. And so get ready to get your plates full. But if you'll notice on the screen here, when we talk about what it must have been like for them, daily activities inside the ark, I'm sure they just didn't sit around there and twiddle their thumbs and put little marks on the wall how many days they've been in the ark. I'm sure there was plenty to do on the inside when you've had that many animals on the inside of it. And so, they were in there a long time, and I'm going to give you the time frame they were in there. And so I'm sure, there was plenty to do to keep the ark nice and clean and tidy and smelling good. But it says here in Genesis 8:4, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. Now notice that, mountains of Ararat. And so that's going to come to play in the future. So that's real key on location of the ark. And so now when we're talking about the ark resting, it's very unique, guys, how the way the Lord uses the time frames and numbers and stuff like that. Guys, it's not there by just sheer coincidence. Let's just put it that way. Everything has a meaning to it, and there's a reason why it's there. And so it says here, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat on the 17th day of the 7th month. The children of Israel left Egypt on the 14th day, which was Passover, on the 7th month. God told Moses that this would be changed to their first month, which would be their sacred calendar, which would mark feast days. They crossed the Red Sea on the 17th day during the night. Jesus was crucified on the 14th day, Passover, and rose from the dead on the 17th day of the first month, which is none other than the 17th day of the 7th month. So get this, guys. The day that the ark rested is the same day that Jesus rose from the dead. Get that. Now, there's more to that than what makes it. That is absolutely amazing. The days are the same. The days that the ark rested is the same day that Jesus rose from the dead. That is absolutely just amazing. Now, when you get into biblical mathematics and stuff and numbers and numerology, and I really use that numerology real loose. I would rather say biblical mathematics. And so you get a numerology, that could take you into some occult stuff. But biblical mathematics, let's use that instead. You got numbers, which means certain things. Like there were 8 people in the ark. The number 8 means new birth, new creation, or beginning. In Genesis chapter 8, Noah and his family, 8 people, and the animals were released from the ark to repopulate the earth. God releases them in verse 16, which is 8 times 2. And so get that. And so, again, means new birth, new creation, new beginning. And so they leave the ark to a new world. It's a new world. Okay, just to throw some more things at you that is more than just coincidence. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. The angel Gabriel told Zacharias to name his son John. Now, we've talked about that in the past, and we talked about names in the Bible, how sometimes they were told by angels that to name their child a certain name because of whatever the meaning of the name is. But the angel Gabriel told Zacharias to name his son John, which means Jehovah is gracious, giver or God's grace. And so both the ark and Jesus were perfect provisions designed by God and freely available for sinful people. The ark had many rooms, and Jesus is preparing us a place with many rooms. The ark had one door. Jesus said that he was the door. The dove left and did not come back. The Spirit of God descended like a dove and lighting upon him. And so the dove left and didn't come back, but it came back down and lighted upon Jesus. And so I've heard some people say it like that. And so when the dove left, it left and it didn't come back until it lighted upon Jesus. And so, for what it's worth in that area, it sure does preach well. And so now, Genesis 8, 6 through 7, and it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Genesis 8, 8 through 9. Also he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her in unto him into the ark. Genesis 8, then 10 through 11. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out from the ark, and the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And who knows, maybe she was going to start making a nest or something. And so, or maybe the Lord just commanded that dove to pluck a little branch off and bring it to Noah to show him. And so either way, Genesis 8:12, and he stayed yet another 7 days and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. So who knows, maybe the dove said, hey, you just keep kicking me out. I think I'm going to build my nest somewhere else. How long were they in the ark? Oh, let's talk about that. In Genesis 7:6, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. In Genesis 7:11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month of the 17th day of the month, the same day where all the fountains of the great deep broke open and the windows of heaven were opened. Genesis 7:13, in the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife and the three wives of his sons with them into the ark. Genesis 8:14 through 16. And in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried, and God spoke unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And so altogether, you put that all together, he went in the 600th year, the second month of the 17th month. He came out the 601st year of the second month, the 27th day of the month. He was in there for 1 year and 10 days. They were in there for 1 year and 10 days. So I'm sure they had to have plenty to do to keep them occupied. And so the ark rested. And so, when the ark rested, they had to remain in there for a bit further until, because I'm sure it was not very hospitable when they landed. And so where they landed, we are going to talk about in a future video. But going on, okay, now talking about the animals that came on the ark, if you remember, he was told that the clean beast, they were to be taken by sevens, the male and his female, and beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth. What's really interesting is when Noah came out from the ark, Genesis 8:20, he made a sacrifice. He had a sacrifice. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord and took of every what? Clean beast, of every clean and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And so again, now if he was taken from the animals that were only taken by two, that would be the end of those animals. That would be it. So he took of the clean beast and he had a burnt offering for the Lord. And so really interested there. Now it says in Genesis 9:12 through 14, and God said, this is the token of the covenant which I have made between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And going on, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And every time we look at the rainbow, we can see that. We can see, that brings us all the way back to Genesis. And if you remember me talking about the Tower of Babel, how when they came out and then they started repopulating the earth, that what did they do? They built this tower in case God would destroy the earth again with a flood. And God told them he wasn't going to do it. And so I'm sure that ticked him off. And that was one of the reasons why he did away with that tower and kind of made the languages confused. And so now the animals came off the ark. And, there's some ideas, how did they get to these other continents? Now let's just say there was a supercontinent on the planet. And when they come off the ark, you've got different continents. It's not one whole supercontinent now. How did these other animals get to these other areas? And there's all the different types of fanciful interpretations. It could be that the land masses were not completely covered by water, which we have now, and that during the Ice Age, when the ice was gathering up, there was a lot of water that was in the ice before the meltback, and there were land bridges between the continents. And that some of these waters were actually pulled up into large basins that held lakes. And so some of those waters, before they breached, were held back by these huge basins. And so that's another thought also. But these land bridges is definitely an interesting thought, especially before the Ice Age. Now, at this time here, when they're coming off the ark, the Ice Age is now starting. There's now starting the waters, the coolness is now starting. And so the 500 years of buildup for the Ice Age is now started. And then there'll be a 200 years of meltback after that. And so the waters, the sea levels may not have been as high as we see today. And so the animals could have could have crossed over into other continents that way. They could have been taken by boats and stuff like that, that people made. That's a possibility. Now, another idea is that there could have been floating islands. Floating islands. This is a really wild thing. If you notice that picture down there, just look at that picture while I'm reading this, and this will give you an idea what floating islands are. There are many log mats or floating islands today. Some have growing vegetation, including trees, and sometimes supporting animals. Loktak Lake in the northeast India has many natural floating islands called, well, I'm going to say that's Fundus or Humdus, with some small ones built for fishing. The fishermen catch about 15 tons, that's 6.6 million pounds of fish every year. There is a school on one of the floating islands, and that may be that school right there. That right there, guys, is a floating island. These circular land masses are made of vegetation, soil, and organic matter at different stages of decomposition that have been thickened into a solid form. The islands have a spongy surface that feels like a trampoline. Like an iceberg, most of the mass of this Fundus or Humdus lies below the surface. During the dry season, when the water levels drop, the living roots of the islands can reach the lake bed and absorb nutrients, which is kind of wild. So during the dry season, these floating islands, they have roots hanging down. So they would go to the bottom, they would touch the bottom, start to get nutrients, and then when the waters start to raise up again, it just floats right back up. And so it's a wild system that is. Now going on, it says that these islands support about 200 species of aquatic plants and 400 species of animals, including the rare Indian python. The largest island is home to the, whatever that is, the world's only floating national park. Get that, a floating national park. It serves as a habitat for the endangered brow-antlered sangai or dancing deer, whose hooves have adapted to the island's spongy ground. The park, covering 15 square miles, was specifically created to preserve the deer, which were once thought to be extinct. The habitat is composed of floating meadows and a raised strip of hard ground that separates the park into northern and southern zones. The construction of the, I'm going to say, Ithay Dam in the 1980s, built to provide power for India's northeast states, has threatened the life of the islands. The dam south of Loktak Lake has caused water levels to remain high year-round, preventing those islands or those roots from sinking and reaching the lake bed for nutrients. As a result, these islands are slowly thinning and breaking apart. They're breaking apart. Now, going on, lastly, Van Duzer points out, to those not acquainted with them, floating islands usually seem at first like a myth, a paradox, or an impossibility. Surely chunks of the solid and massy earth on which we stand cannot drift easily about the surface of a body of water, yet floating islands exist on at least 6 of the 7 continents. Get that. I have never heard of them until I was researching this information. And sometimes in the oceans that separate them. They may have trees growing upon them, be hundreds of meters. 1 meter is about 3 feet. So that gives you a size of these things across, and support the weight of 100 cattle grazing on them. So this is a picture, an aerial view of these floating islands, guys. And we've talked about the floating log mats, like of Spirit Lake. So you can imagine if you get soils and maybe vegetation begins to grow on this thing, you get yourself a floating island. Everything kind of just connected and kind of fuses together with each other. And this may be a vehicle that could have been a vehicle to get some of these animals from one continent to another continent, because that's it stated above, that there were floating islands that exist on at least 6 of the 7 continents. So you literally got floating islands on just about all the continents on the planet. And so this is a possibility. Just throw that out, at you. And so, but guys, we're going to stop right there. And when we come back, I'm real happy I got a chance to go through what I did here. We are going to talk about the resting of the ark. Where is it? Where is it? And so this is going to be a large block. I'm not really for sure how many videos it's going to take to go through this, but we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end of my presentation here. And so I'm looking at my slide here at the number, and it's 1,939. 1,939. That's what we're going to come at that we're here. Now, there's some slides I didn't show in this presentation, but I'm sure at least in the high 1800s to low 1900s, that's how many slides that we have been through. And so just a fascinating, all different types of topics you could go through and rabbit trail into different type of things. But this right here is really interesting where the ark could be. And to be fair, guys, I'm going to be neutral, and I'm going to be showing you all types of areas that have been discussed. And I'm going to give each area that I've been able to get information about, I'm going to be fair and give each one of them a fair set of evidence. And that way you guys can make up your decision on where you think the ark may be. But it's a fascinating thing. Even though we haven't found the ark, or we may not have found the ark, it doesn't mean that the story is not true. You will hear me constantly say the historical biblical account. And so it really did happen. It's real history. And so, but you guys take care. I love you. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.